And I think that's a piece of advice that I've gotten since the very beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. But I didn't quite understand what people meant when they said that. Like, your tribe will find you on social media. It wasn't until I got to TikTok that I'm like, oh, this is what they mean, right? I think TikTok is a great place to try things out.
Yeah.
Just try it out. You don't have to be as polished or as strategic, right? Of course, you can have like your content pillars, the things that you want to post about consistently. But I think that is the best place to just try things and see what works. And then once you find something that works, stick with it.
Welcome to the TikTok influencers you really should know about. I'm your host, Christine Blosdale. In this podcast, you'll get to meet TikTok creators who inspire, motivate, and entertain. Get ready to discover the influencers you may not have heard of yet, but you definitely should know about. Welcome back to the TikTok influencers you really should know about. No, this is not about how many followers someone has or their celebrity status. Basically, these are people that I find absolutely riveting. They're inspirational, they're funny, they're creative, and they're really TikTok creators that you need to know about. And the show is highlighting today someone that I came across, and I'm very happy to share. I'll have her TikTok page listed in the show notes as well. It's Erin Darden, who is an attorney and also an emotional intelligence coach, which we can use some emotional intelligence right about now, Erin. Welcome to the TikTok influencers.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, like I said before we hit record, there's a qualifier to be on the show, and that is someone who makes me stop, watch the whole video, comment sometimes, like, and also do a little binge watching. And you definitely have done that. So Tick, tell us, when did you first start putting out your content on TikTok?
When I probably started with TikTok a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Probably no more than 2 years ago. I heard a lot of people talking about it. At the time, I was heavily focused on Instagram because that's where my target audience was, or so I thought. So I was focused on Instagram, but I kept hearing about TikTok and how that is so much better than Instagram. And then I started using TikTok personally. I love how TikTok, you can find anything that you need on TikTok.
Yes.
It's like the new Google. And so one day I just decided, well, let's put my content on both and see what happens. And people have been much more receptive on TikTok. I don't really understand why. It seems like Instagram is more so my cheerleaders, right? My family, my friends, the people that are going to support me no matter what. But I found that with TikTok, that is really where my community is, right? That is where people are going to look for help, right? Looking for answers to their problems. So over the last, actually, it's been just a few months that people have really taken a liking to my content, which makes me extremely happy. Like I say all the time, I knew people that needed emotional intelligence. I didn't know that they know that they needed it.
Yes.
And so it makes me ecstatic that people realize that emotional intelligence is a skill that they need and that they are open to receiving the help.
And like what you're talking about too is that, with the other social media platform, those other ones,
What
you,
are they?
like Facebook is great for your cousins and your uncles
Yes.
and your friends from high school, but TikTok is a tribe. I found it's very interesting, and the algorithm is such that your people find you,
Yes.
and you find your people, and
Yes.
I could never reach the people that I'm reaching right now on my TikTok channel if it wasn't for that algorithm. And I'm an expert authority business coach, so my job is to take entrepreneurs and to get them out there, right? And
Yes.
that means setting them up with their own podcast or being a guest on podcasts. That I love doing that. But I always tell them, you need to be on social media, you need to be doing video. And I'm really sort of pushing them over to TikTok. Even some of my clients that are in their 70s, and 80s, I'm saying, you know what? There is there's your tribe is there, and it's young people who want to learn from elders, but it's such it's an amazing place. And when they did that whole America being banned from the TikTok,
Mhm.
I was saying that would be a tragedy because
Yes.
there's so many creative people that are on TikTok right now.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's really important what you said about your people will find you. And I think that's a piece of advice that I've gotten since the very beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. But I didn't quite understand what people meant when they said that. Like your tribe will find you on social media. It wasn't until I got to TikTok that I'm like, oh, this is what they mean, right? I think TikTok is a great place to try things out.
Yeah.
Just try it out. You don't have to be as polished or as strategic, right? Of course, you can have like your content pillars, the things that you want to post about consistently. But I think that is the best place to just try things and see what works. And then once you find something that works, stick with it.
Yeah. Well, and another reason why you came up and why I was wanting you to be on the show is something that I tell all my clients, all my coaching clients, is that you need to be authentic and relatable, right?
Yes.
Because the days of the Kardashian perfection, that's over. And Hollywood and even the music industry, we're like, we smell it, we know
Mhm.
that's not real. And what I
Yeah.
love about your videos is you'll have some where where you are in your professional sort of mode, but then other times you're wearing your sweatshirt, your hair's up, and you're just like, this is, and you're real. It's not like you're this guru. um and your resume is impressive with what you've accomplished, but you're not this guru on a mountaintop saying this is how you should behave, this is how you should act. You're actually saying, you know what, I get caught up in my own emotions, and I caught myself the other day doing this, that, and the other. And so that brings people right into you because you're showing that you are a human being, as we all are. So I
Yes.
just really love that realness and that
Yeah.
rawness that you bring. It's very lovely.
And like you said, I think we are in a stage, especially in entrepreneurship and in business, where people want to know the owners, right? People
Yeah.
want to be able to connect to the owners. Like that is a lot of what's been going on lately, whether, who the owners support or who they don't support, who, right? People
Mm-hmm.
buy
Yeah.
into that. It's really your story that people buy into. And so it's a big part of my business model to teach people what I've been through. I know this stuff works because most of it I had to learn myself. And I think in order for me to really teach and help other people, I believe in being honest and transparent and vulnerable myself. And in the beginning, I probably wasn't as vulnerable, but once I hit a moment where I'm like, let's try, let's share. Let's see what happens because I know, especially when I like share about my mental health journey and right this emotional stuff, I know a lot of times these are things that people try to hide.
Mm. Yeah.
And what I want people to understand is that, right, emotions are not bad. They're not wrong. They're messengers. They're there to tell you something. And the way that I like to teach in part, right, is to use myself as an example. And I have gotten really good feedback about it. They're like, thanks for being vulnerable. Or like people say, me too, but I've been scared to say something. And that's what really makes me feel good that if I can be transparent and vulnerable and it helps somebody else, I've done my job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you bring people closer to you, which is the important thing because you become trustworthy, right?
Yes.
Well, and to give people an example so they can get a little appetizer of some of
Okay.
your content, is it okay to play a clip from one of your TikToks? Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. All right. Let's do that. We're going to cue this up. So, this is a video that is found on Erin Darden's TikTok page. We will have a link in the show notes so you can click on there, follow her, and, let's do the thing. Do the thing that
Mhm.
helps the algorithm. Okay. That means like the videos, comment if you can, save, all that stuff. It just helps. And it gets my wonderful guest today, Erin, it gets her out to more people that she can help so that they don't feel all alone
Yes.
either. Okay. So that's what we want to do. So let's see if I'll pull this up now. All right. Can you see that there, Erin?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. All right. Here we go. We're going to listen now. This is perfect. We'll talk about this clip when we come.
This week in Emotional Intelligence 101, we are covering two topics that impact how we manage our emotions: processing our emotions versus reacting impulsively, and then how overthinking keeps us stuck. Emotions aren't random, they carry messages about what we need, what matters to us, and where healing is needed. But instead of listening, many of us react impulsively, or we get stuck in this trap of overthinking. I replay situations over and over without any resolution. So this class is going to help break that cycle. We are going to be talking about the difference between reacting versus processing emotions, how to unpack what your emotions are trying to tell you, why overthinking keeps you stuck instead of bringing clarity, steps to gain emotional clarity and respond in a way that aligns with your values, and then how to shift from ruminating to processing and taking action. Reflect.
Mm-hmm. You said something, you said right there, it made just in that little clip, you were just saying some of the most important things, right? And the death knell of us, with relationships especially too, this thing of reacting instead of responding, and overthinking. Can you
Yes.
unpack that a little bit? Because we've all done this, I know, especially when it comes to relationships as well. Can you talk about those two things? Because we do tend to react
Mm-hmm.
rather than stop and think about it and then respond. But then that overthinking thing, that just kills so many.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna take a step back before I get into that, right? When you think about or the way that emotional intelligence shows up in romantic relationships, or the way that it benefits the most: communication,
Mm-hmm.
conflict resolution, and connection, right? Those are the biggest three ways that emotional intelligence can help to improve your relationship. Those are also the three areas that people tend to struggle in their relationship. And so when it comes with communication and conflict resolution, people don't realize that the one of the biggest reasons that they cannot communicate and that they cannot resolve conflict is because they don't know how to manage their emotions properly.
Mm, yeah.
So people have a misunderstanding about the purpose of emotions. Like I said, your emotions are there to tell you something. Your emotions are information. And if you do not take the time to stop and process your emotions, to know how to manage them and communicate them effectively, right? This is when you have the screaming and shouting matches. This is when you are reacting. This is when you're just going to keep thinking over and over again without any type of resolution. And so, in order for you to stop these things, you have to know how to process your emotions. I think one of the biggest mistakes people make in relationships is going to try and talk about problems too soon,
Mm,
because the way that the human brain is set up, you cannot be both emotional and logical at the same time. Like, it just doesn't allow it. And so when you are so consumed with your emotions, you can't have a productive conversation.
no.
Right? This is when you're reacting. This is when you are yelling and screaming and hitting below the belt. This is when you do the damage, right? I've had couples where we have worked through whatever the issue is, but because they've said things when they were angry or frustrated that you cannot take back, now I can't necessarily help with that part, right? The damage is already done. And so when you are reacting, that means you have not taken the time to think about what your emotions are trying to tell you. You have not taken the time to think about what you really need in those moments. You are just expressing your emotions without a goal, for no good reason, right? It's not moving your relationship forward.
Right. Right. And it's so easy to go down that, I call it the bathtub drain. When you
Hmm.
let the plug out and all that
Yes.
water goes down, it's kind of tough to stop that
Yes.
momentum, and we can spiral. I've been lucky enough to catch myself
Hmm.
before I spiraled down the drain. And I remember specifically one time when I was driving in traffic in Los Angeles, which is any time, and
Right.
I was when I was with my wife. Now I live with my wife, and we're all good. But it was in that during that time when we lived. It was a long distance relationship,
Hmm.
and it was something about, like, I don't know. She didn't text me back right away, or I don't know what it was. Something where I didn't hear from her, and immediately the negative comes in. She must be cheating, right? She must be.
Yes.
You go to the worst place.
Absolutely.
Not like she's busy. or
Hmm.
she can't get, to her phone. No, it was that she's cheating, right? She's
Yes.
with somebody else. I'm doomed to be alone forever. And I caught myself, and instead of going down that drain and making all these scenarios and stories, I just
Hmm.
stepped aside from myself a bit, and I said, wait a second, you don't know. Why don't we just wait?
Yes.
Why don't we
Yes.
just wait? Wait, wait a couple hours, wait a day, and just see how
Hmm.
she talks to me,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Because if
Yes.
she comes back to me and she's all loving and kind and lovely and everything's good, then you were just worried about nothing, right? Now, if she
Yes.
comes back and
Yes.
she's like, it sounded a little slick, then you can go,
Mhm.
then you can take it,
Then you can, right. Yeah.
right?
And that brings up a good point. I think when it comes to overthinking, and so I teach a weekly class on TikTok. And so in that particular class, what I wanted people to also realize is nowadays everybody says that they're an overthinker. And I don't believe that that is true. I think that there is a difference between lacking enough information
Mm,
and overthinking.
mm-hmm.
Those are two different things. And so if something happens or your partner says something, but they don't share a complete thought,
Yeah,
there's a gap for you to fill in. And like you said, the human brain is wired to fill it in with negative thoughts, right? That means there's a gap in information. And that's when you need to seek and ask clarity. Now, if you have all the information, but you are determined to come up with your own interpretation, you don't
right.
believe what's going on, right? Now you are overthinking it. And when you're in that space, that's when I tell people to ask yourself, is this a fact or a feeling? Because those are two different things, right?
Yeah.
You can have emotions about something, but your feelings are how you interpret the situation. So you have emotions and then you have feelings. But your feelings is very something that's something subjective that you made up based off your past experiences, your
Yes,
ideologies, the way you think, your point of view. And so you have to make sure that, is this a fact? Can I point to specific things to support this conclusion I came up with? Or did I just make this up? Am I overthinking?
exactly. And
Hmm.
also another thing, and I think that, I mean, any couple that's thinking about going the long haul, I think they need to make an appointment with Erin and have a conversation, because also something that's really important is how, you know, how people fight,
Yeah.
right? Do
Hmm.
you do you do you bring a glove to the fight, or do you bring a cannon
Hmm.
or some other weapon? Because
Yes.
we, depending on how also our upbringing, right? The social structures that how our parents
Hmm.
argued or dealt with conflict can impress upon us. But
Yeah.
I find that, yeah, because you had mentioned something earlier, that when people, if they get that emotional rile up, right, and all of that, that they can hit below the belt
Hmm.
and say things that you can't take away. Once it comes
Yes.
out of your mouth, it's
Hmm.
there. So
Yes.
can we talk about that, about maybe ways that we handle conflict differently,
Hmm.
and how we can be aware of that, and how we show up to a fight?
Yeah. You are absolutely right that we learn how to communicate from our parents or our caregivers growing up and then also through life experiences. But our first teachers are our caregivers as children. And like you said, just like everybody has different love languages, which most people are aware of, we also have different communication styles and different conflict resolution styles.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people talk to other people in their own style. But if you're going to be a good partner, you have to understand your partner. You have to understand and speak in a way that your partner can receive things. And I'll use myself as an example. Right? I like to think that I'm a more logical than emotional person. I want to get straight to what's the answer, what's the solution. And so when people call me or friends call me, so what we going to do about it? So what you gonna do about this?
Right.
What you gonna do? Until it was a guy that I was dating, and he was like, "Why do you always do that? Like sometimes I just need to hear it's okay or I'm sorry." And I was like, "You just want me to say I'm sorry?" That's not how right? I'm sorry for me doesn't do anything. I don't care about a I'm sorry. You didn't do it to me, right?
Right.
I want to help figure it out. Help me brainstorm.
What are we
Help
going to
me.
do about it?
What are we gonna do about it? And so he said literally, like, I don't, that's not what I need from you. And so I had to learn. So now I ask first, what do you need from me right now? Are you just venting? I'm sorry that you feel that way. Do you want a sounding board? Can I offer my suggestions? And so you have to make sure that you are speaking in a way that your partner can understand. But I think the other thing, even before that, you have to recognize everybody grows up differently.
Mm-hmm.
While
Yeah.
you may be opinionated and you grew up with people asking you how you feel or how your day was, or what do you think about this, everybody is not like that. Everybody does not grow up knowing that it's okay to speak up, and sometimes it's children should be seen and not heard. So you've been telling me from since I could talk up until 18 that you don't want to hear from me, and now that I'm 18 I'm supposed to know how to speak up for myself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It can be difficult. And so you have to make sure that you also are empathetic and understand your partner's experience with communication. Do they feel safe talking to you? If not, why? Is there something that you're doing like I was unintentionally to make them feel dismissed? I wasn't trying to make him feel dismissed, but clearly I did. Right. And so that's something that I had to work on. So you have to have a conversation on how you communicate, or if you notice that something that you says tick them off when you're in a better space. I noticed that your energy shifted when I said this. Could I have said it differently? How could I have said it better? Or what would you have liked me to do in this situation? But having a conversation about how you communicate when you're calm, not when you are experiencing those emotions, it goes a long way.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you just think about like oh, all of the pain or the emotional, the emotional pain and the hurt and the heartbreak and all of that that can be avoided by just simply thinking about what the other person, because this is the other thing. There's no winners
Yeah.
when when somebody has to win.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen this, I've seen this from past relationships, but also just as an observer, that if you're in a relationship with someone and you need to win an argument, you need to win the point, there's not a lot of hope for that,
Yeah.
because there are no winners when you're sitting there arguing over, money or this or that. But can you talk about that? Because I'm sure with you, when you've seen your clients, when you've been with them,
Mm-hmm.
that there might have been somebody who's their whole thing when they when they get heated, because it's emotional,
Mm-hmm.
they get
Yeah.
heated, they got to win.
Yeah. And oftentimes people come to me like, am I wrong for
Ah, right.
Am I wrong for feeling like? And so I always tell people, you're never wrong for how you feel. And so if
Right.
you're never wrong for how you feel, that means your partner is also not wrong for how they feel. So, like you said, it's not about winning, it's not about right or wrong. You have a right to feel the way that you feel. Your partner has a right to feel the way that they feel. What do we do from here?
What do we do
Right?
about it?
You have to what do we do about it? Right? You have to make sure that you are identifying the issue. And I always tell people, take the gloves off.
Yeah.
This is not you versus your partner. It's you two against the issue. Even if it's something like you feel overwhelmed because you take on more of the responsibilities with the household and the children, right? Even if you feel overwhelmed, it's still not a you versus them thing. It's us against me feeling overwhelmed,
Yes.
right? So what
Yes.
do we do about me feeling overwhelmed, right?
Love that.
Um,
Yeah.
yes, maybe it is that your partner picks up more things, but maybe your partner is tapped out too, and you need to bring in outside help. But when you look at it like it's us against this thing, not you versus your partner, because they very well could be tapped out. They may also not have the capacity.
Yeah.
Then what, right? So this is why it can't be a you versus them thing. It's us against this issue. And so now we work as a team to come up with a solution to whatever the thing is. But you have to make sure that you are identifying the correct issue, which a lot of people have issues with.
Ah, you are so wise, Erin.
Thank you.
You are so wise, so wise for being so young. And I'm just so happy that again, I'm so happy to have you on the show, but also that scrolling, found you, and now I'm not going to stalk you, but I will be, I will be commenting on your videos. And I'll make sure that we put in the show notes your TikTok page so people can follow you as well. Any last thoughts that you want to give our listeners?
So I would say again, thank you so much for having me. I love what I do. Like I said, a bulk of what I do is around communication, conflict resolution, and connection. Recognize that your emotions are not wrong. They're not bad. They're there to tell you something. And so you just have to make sure that you are taking the time to understand what it is that they're trying to tell you. And then how do you effectively communicate that to your partner or whomever, right? Because I work with emotional intelligence in a context of romantic relationship, but it works for any relationship, parent, child, work relationships, any type of relationship. So you can use the same skill sets. So just recognize that you have a right to feel however you want to feel. If I can support you in any other way, please let me know. Like you said, follow me on TikTok. I do a weekly class on TikTok every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want additional support, I have a membership community where we meet regularly and have additional support and services so that you can really start to, raise your self-awareness, because you can't change anything that you're not aware of. And so becoming first a better you and then a better partner is always my goal. Like I said, I love what I do, and I'm always happy to help.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, Erin. And I want
Thank
to
you.
thank you, wonderful listeners and viewers. If you're watching this on YouTube, you get to actually see my wonderful guest, Erin Darden. And for those of you who want more information about this podcast, you can go to the TikTokinfluencers.com. And if you want more information about the coaching work that I do, you can go to expertauthoritycoach.com. All that good stuff is there. In the show notes, though, is going to be links to everything. So you can just check that out and make sure that you share this with others, like and comment, of course, if it comes across your social media. And until next time, I want to remind you, just keep scrolling through TikTok, because there are some amazing creators out there that we need to support with our likes, our comments, and our making that algorithm pick up so we can get the word out on those amazing creators. All right, now, until next time, take care. Bye-bye.